Okay, speaking of the dogs, one wants to jump up on the lap. You missed here. Let's try again. Okay, there you go. Okay, well, we appreciate everybody joining today. Before we get started on the subject matter for the day, Disneyland, last week I didn't want to leave audiences hanging in suspense or anything. So last week we talked about we were doing Expo 67, and somebody had a homemade title slide of different days there, and they were at the German pavilion. They had a German book. And Carol said, I have that exact same book, and she couldn't find it last week. So Carol, why don't you show us the exact same book?
Uh-huh.
Printed in Munich in 1952. It's going blurry, Carol. Up there it goes. Yeah, 1952. It's all in German. It's about two bad boys and all the terrible things they do, and we're trying to decipher it. Carol speaks better German, I think, than she reads it, but it was just it was a real surprise to show it last week, and then all of a sudden have her say, "That's the exact book I have," and then there it is. So good. People can rest easy. They don't have to worry that Carol is still searching through the Cotterer Library, which has more than a few books in it. So great. So we're going to jump. Let me let somebody else in. We're going to jump back here to Disneyland. And let me get the first pictures ready. 1 second. I mentioned we're going to be all over the place in different years. And this first batch, let's see, I need to go to share screen. Where'd the Zoom window go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Share screen. This first batch of ones is pictures that I've already restored. I just finished this week, so I thought I'd start with these. So like I said, they're going to go all over the place. We're going to start in 1961, and these were slides that were about 4 inches square. I think it was 127 format film. Some of them are a little blurry because the person probably took this walking in, but the old ticket booths and Main Street Station in the back. And you get inside the park, these were all, by the way, bright red. Kodachrome seems to have held up pretty well, Ektachrome not, but luckily able to bring a lot of this stuff back. If you go to Disneyland today, the trees have been replaced over time because they basically grew at a scale. Disneyland, the buildings are set off to a smaller scale to make Main Street look bigger than it is. And you won't see some things like the horse-drawn carriages today. A, the streets are too crowded, and B, it costs too much money for people to operate them. So they manage to, and we'll see a lot of things lost in cost cutting. Over to the right-hand side here, the Bank of America, and there's a souvenir kiosk here. If you zoom in on these, sometimes it's kind of neat to see, the things that were sold here. But Bank of America, it's now, it's no longer a bank, but it was a working bank back when Carol and I worked there. And you could actually, as a cast member, go in, and they had special checks that had Mickey and Minnie on them, and they were only available at the Disneyland branch of the Bank of America. So you got these things, and whenever you cash a check, it was funny. People say, "Oh, this is too pretty. I don't want to cash it." And I would always tell them, "Fine, don't." But somehow they always did. But that was a fun little perk of working there. And it said it was a working bank with a actual bank vault inside. Today, this is used as an art gallery for selling limited edition pictures and things like that. And the bank vault door is still open, and you can walk in and see what was for sale. But just over to the left-hand side here, great moments with Mr. Lincoln, which wasn't there because this is 1961. The Main Street Flower Mart, I remember being super, super disappointed in going to the street with all these pretty flowers and finding out that they were all artificial. But for a long time, Disneyland ran quite a business in mail order fake flowers. And they put out a catalog that when you visited the park, you could get it, take it home, or they would mail it to you. And you could say, I want half a dozen azaleas and 2 rhododendrons and 4 calla lilies, that sort of thing. And they'd pack it all up and mail it to you. So how they got into the mail order flower business and got to be such a big thing is kind of an unknown mystery to me.
I suspect it also made a lot of money for Kodak.
Yes, yes, I imagine you're right, because I know there's a lot of pictures of it over here. Again, you can see all sorts of things have changed over the years. This word Ruggle here is Ruggles China Shop.
Mhm.
When Main Street was first opened, Disneyland was first built, almost all the stores on Main Street were licensees. And this guy Ruggle had the shop there. It later became the China Closet. But it's interesting because I have notes from different meetings. They had their own, just like you have on a condo association, you have a condo board. They had a board of licensees, and they would all get together and meet and talk about what they liked about doing business at Disneyland and how what they didn't like. And Disney would come in and respond what they could change, what they wouldn't change, that sort of thing. And over time, Disney bought out most of the licensees. Uh, just that was one of the things that Roy Disney was great at, was that the contract gave Disney the decision on when they were going to pull out more than it gave the licensees. So they started seeing something was fairly profitable. They could decide, oh, we're going to take that over. The better thing was that when they saw things were not being popular, because they kept track of attendance and sales and that, if they had something that was a real dog on Main Street, they could go and put something better in its place at the time. Over here, if we zoom in a bit, you can see insurance by North America. This was the Carefree Corner, the visitor center. You can come in and sign the guest books, which Archives has all the guest books that were in there for all sorts of people, and they periodically will put one on display with famous people's names in it. But most of them were just average Joe and Janes coming in, signing their name, having a good day. And while you were there, you would get an INA insurance booklet and maybe think about having them at home. One of the restaurants off of Main Street. This one's kind of interesting. This is the Chicken Plantation Restaurant. We're over by the river now. And what made this restaurant interesting was that the two sides of it, the front and the back, looked like two totally different buildings, totally different architectural styles, because one would face over by the river and another would face, I think, more towards Adventureland. So depending if you went in the front or the back, the restaurant looked like it was done by two different designers. Sadly gone now, the Swiss Sky Ride. This is the uh, Fantasyland station. When it was first put in, they had the round cars with basically held two people, and they had really cheap plastic bucket seats bolted to the floor. When Bob Gurr got involved in the redesign, they made them the rectangular cabins that seated more with molded seats that filled the entire cabin. But if you see an interior of these, it just looks like two, lawn chairs bolted to the floor. This one I got a kick out of the not flower, balloon seller here. Um, I don't know how much they had to pay these guys to wear some of these uniforms, but he's dressed sort of like Pinocchio with the shorts and all that. And look at all the Mickey balloons of different types and sizes and styles you could get. In the back, they had basically what they were called central ticket booths. This was still in the days of the A, B, C, D. I don't know if they've gotten in 1961. I don't know if they had introduced an e-ticket yet, but they had tickets for every ride. And when you came and you bought your book of admission, you could get your tickets, and they would X number of A's and B's and whatever. So over here, you can see it says King Arthur's Carousel of 10 cents, but they didn't take cash. You had to go and pay a what you call it, buy a ticket. So the central ticket booths were very popular with people having used up all their tickets, and dad would have to go over and buy some more. When they went to the passports in I guess that was the late 70s, early 80s, they went to passports, one price pays all. They took most of these out. One or two of them were used for information stands. Just about everything in this picture is gone. The Matterhorn is still there, but obviously the Skyway doesn't go through it. Down below, Casey Jr. is about the only remaining attraction that's still going. Captain Hook's pirate ship, long gone. When they redid Fantasyland in the early 80s, there were plans at that time to save the pirate ship until they actually got to it and found out that dry rot had rendered it basically unmovable and unsalvageable. So it just basically crumbled into dust as they worked on it. Back off to Main Street. when we did the talk about Disney going to the World's Fair, as I mentioned, where there was going to be a another area was going to be International Street and Liberty Street and all that, and they finally by 1961 had given that up, and they put in a restaurant back here, and you can see Hills Brothers Coffee was one of the big sponsors of the early Disneyland TV shows, and then they had the Hills Brothers restaurant over here. When Hills Brothers pulled out, this became the Great American Egg House and some other restaurants. And over here, doesn't show the sign is out of place, but this is Wurlitzer organs, and you could come in and get a demonstration of an organ and order one to be shipped to your house. The original version of Tomorrowland, you had America the Beautiful with this 360-degree theater, the TWA rocket in the back, and Monsanto's Miracles of Molecules, or actually back then it was called the Hall of Chemistry.
Mhm.
The world clock, which I've never quite figured out exactly how it worked, but you could look at it and theoretically figure out where anything in the world, what time it was.
Do you know approximately what year these were?
Yeah, this is 1961.
Oh, 61.
61, yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. So the submarine lagoon in the background, Anaheim has changed so much in all this would be different high rises and all sorts of things. But yeah, 1961. I said these were in no particular order in the box, so we're jumping all over the park back and forth. Well, this is kind of interesting. If you, again, the funny little thing you should find out zooming in on these things. These big banner up here telling you all the things they've added to the park. But there's a kid here at a drinking fountain, and early pictures of it show it. Here it's got like a wooden thing around, and he's standing on it. When it was first put in, it was basically just a pipe that came up with a nozzle and a drinking fountain, whatever tap, whatever you call it, up there. So over time, they came and made it look nicer, and then it's been taken out and has flowers and other things in there now. But real early pictures of Disneyland, this was one big eyesore. So I guess they were lucky they got it open, and over time they made it look nicer. Riding the Skyway, heading towards the Matterhorn. Always interesting. I posted this on Facebook a number of years ago, and just a random shot, right, of the train pulling into the Frontierland station. And somebody posted, "Oh my goodness, I know the guy. I worked with him." And the person had been on the railroads. They found this guy and found him in retirement. And I sent him a copy of the picture, and he was absolutely astonished to find a picture of himself, in 1961 working at Disneyland. So that was kind of neat. Every now and then people say, "I wonder if I'm going to recognize myself in pictures." And in this particular one, somebody recognized a friend. I mentioned on Facebook the other day about hats with flowers, and this guy's got he doesn't have one of the big tall flowers. He's got kind of a small one, but themes, little things that make Disneyland sort of special. Themed trash cans over to the side, different design for Fantasyland than you would have over in Adventureland. And we have the storyboat canal boat ride, the Jungle Cruise. Oh, this was kind of interesting. This is inside the Candy Palace, and they're making peanut brittle. So if you look over here, this one was really tough to restore. It was really, really dark and really, really red. But luckily, the computer, you can do amazing things. But they're making peanut brittle. And then people probably know the story, but if you're walking down Main Street, right underneath where this woman's working, there's a small vent on the street. And they have a tray of vanilla, and they pump the small fan that pumps vanilla smell out on the Main Street. And because people walk down the street, they smell the vanilla, it looks really good, and they go off into the candy store and load up on stuff. So that's been a Disneyland tradition since the place opened. You wonder who the unsung Imagineer was that came up with that brilliant concept. Over to Tomorrowland. Again, sponsors, all sorts of things have changed. General Dynamics was the sponsor of the submarines at that particular point in time, which was fun because they were building real ones. And then just all the old architecture and stuff, long, long gone. But oh, by the way, these chairs would look very much familiar inside the Skyway. These are the same sort of chairs that were bolted down inside those early Skyway cabins. They sold hats like this. Basically, some were made out of paper, some were made out of cloth type material, but haven't seen anything like that in a number of years. We're going through the main entranceway, walking through Tomorrowland. They had these big, canopies out there blocking the sun. And if you look really close inside here, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea attraction, they had the Bathroom of Tomorrow. They had all sorts of things that were long, long gone now. And some things haven't changed too much. Well, this one's kind of interesting. If we zoom in here, again, licensees. Tiki's Tropical Imports was another licensee. Lasted a long, long time at the park, longer than a lot of the Main Street ones. And this is where you would go and get your fill of rubber snakes, fake shrunken heads, all sorts of odds and ends that they eventually decided were a little too gross for kiddies to wear today. But Tiki's was I think one of the longer lasting licensees. I'm trying to remember exactly what year it left, but it was very popular.
I think, Bill, it also was a place that sold replicas, miniature replicas of all the African animals, lions and elephants. Because I remember I had an elephant from there that I bought that I cherished for years because I thought elephants were neat.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing what's changed. Now there's this. We have a picture of our son Neil in a stroller, and we were at Tiki's was gone, and the shop was still there, but it's taken over by Disney, and they were selling rubber snakes. And my daughter thought it'd be really fun to fill the stroller with snakes. So poor Neil is sitting in the stroller up to his eyeballs full of, it looks like deadly snakes. And he was having a ball. Yeah, he thought it was funny. It's funny what you come up with. The Snow White Grotto. Just a nice lazy day picture of the water outside the castle. Off to Adventureland. It's really kind of hard to see it, but in the background here is the Tiki Bird building. And sometimes you get things in motion, so she's blurred. Again, I have no idea what particular film speed he took, but I mentioned that the paper hats that you could get here, this person's wearing one, and our Pinocchio type boy selling stuff. Back to selling more pictures for Kodak. Sending a postcard. Remember, people actually write postcards and send them. There were mailboxes in various parts of the park, and you could buy stamps, and they would pick them up and mail them off for you.
We still do.
Yeah, there's not as many as available. I also got a kick out of this lady's hat. She just reminded me of Mother Goose from so many children's books. So, and let's see. I don't know if this picture is quite sharp enough. We can make out the attendance. No, it's a little blurry. But they would periodically change this every time they got another 10 million. They would or 5 million. I think this may say 35 million. So that's not too bad for a place that has been open 6 years. And more views going down Main Street. So again, looking up here, they're telling you, oh, wow, in 1961, the new monorail coming right on that. Main Street Theater at that time was still showing actual silent movies, not just Disney cartoons, but they would periodically change out the cartoons. Somewhere in the garage, I have a whole box full of Disneyland matchbooks, which you could get at the tobacco shop. Obviously, we don't have a tobacconist there today. If they did, they wouldn't be selling very much.
Bill?
Yeah.
The Main Street Theater, I don't remember. Did you stand or were there seats?
You stood. Yeah.
You stood, okay.
Yeah, it's very small inside, and basically you went in, and I think there were 3 screens.
Yeah, there were multiple screens.
Yeah, I think left, right, center, and they had different movies playing on each one. Being silent, that was great. They didn't interfere with each other. But I would say if it held 30 or 40 people, that would probably be pushing it. It's fairly small.
It was never crowded.
No. I want a balloon, Daddy. Looking down from the Skyway station, looking down over here. Well, this was kind of interesting. Again, you don't have a lot of indoor shots at this time because the film needed so much light. But this particular one here is the Tinkerbell toy shop. And I remember when I worked at the for Disney, we would periodically have to come down and do inventories. Park would be closed Mondays and Tuesdays in the off season, and you go down and count all the dolls and hats and everything. And the upstairs of this thing was a real labyrinth because it's built in the edge of the castle, and wherever they had room, I mean, you had stock rooms that were, square, and some of them were triangular, and some that were, they were just really weird shapes and everything. It was really neat to climb around through them. But this was, back when they sold stuff that was, besides Disney merchandise, all these dolls. I don't remember the names of maybe some of the other people in the call do, some of the famous doll companies of the time. I know they sold stuffed animals, excuse me, some others, but all sorts of non-Disney stuff. And girls would save up their money, or they convince their parents to go and buy them some of these dolls. It's just for me kind of nice to see stuff that wasn't all Disney, all generic merchandise. And we're approaching the most dangerous part of your trip, the ride home. Here's Tiki's again. Let's see if we go see any elephants for Brock. Looks like you can buy lots of hats and things on keychain, sort of keychains or something hanging here.
I think that lower shelf where the people are standing in front of, that's where a lot of those animals were. That you can't tell if there's any in this one, but I know it was like on one side was all the African elephant, animals, and then there was some, rubber snakes and stuff on the other side of the building, I believe.
Right. I don't know whatever became of this figure, but he was gone by the time I got there. I know Joey's instantly looking at these lights here, trying to figure out what look like the Moldcast lights he has.
Yeah, that's what they look like, actually.
Yeah. What's interesting over the years how the park changes. The snow level, you'd think it would always look the same, right? That you would, when they built it in '59, you take a picture of it, and as the paint wears off, you redo it. But at different times, the snow is really down here. Other times, it's up here. It's like, it's fake, but it's all global warming type things where it changes over time. Looking out from the drawbridge to the castle. Well, back then, this drawbridge would actually still work. It's now been, all the stuff with these chains and everything is gone because, oh no, some kid may fall in and be drowning in the 3 inches of water here. So we have to fill this in with a wall. So that's all changed. The drawbridge no longer works. Surrey down Main Street. It was funny, the other day somebody asked on Facebook about the Tomorrowland station, and I didn't recall where I had this particular picture, but down below is the hat shop, which it was the Mad Hatter, but became the Mod Hatter back in the '60s when everything was mod and cool and rad and everything. But basically all the mechanism for the ride was in the Fantasyland station, which had the big motors to pull the cables along. And this was just a bunch of gears and pulleys to turn everything around. Over time, they've enclosed all this in, so you didn't see the, all this stuff up here. By the time I got there in '76, there was a wall around it, and you didn't see it at all.
Yeah, I wonder if that was enclosed by '67, which was the first year that I visited, because I don't remember this view at all.
Yeah, I'd have to go back through pictures and look for them and see where things change. And it's kind of the fun thing is to see what changed and try to prompt and figure out what prompted them to do a certain thing at a certain point in time. But yeah, at some point, like I said, this was totally enclosed.
You can see the chairs there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All these posters. Somebody just sold two of these posters on online, and they went for $3,000 each.
Oof.
So you know, back I missed it back. They had tons of these in the warehouse, and after a while they decided they weren't going to use them anymore. So they sold them off to employees at a warehouse sale, and I think they were getting something like $10 a piece. And you know, what am I going to do with one of these? I don't have a wall big enough for it. You know, geez, think if I had bought some of that and just squirreled them away, could have done real well.
Yeah, I bought one of the ones for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and unfortunately, in one of our moves, it got very seriously damaged because I think that one would be worth a lot of money. That was a very
Yeah.
popular one.
And it wasn't there very long.
No,
But by the time you know they were getting into these, 20,000 Leagues was already gone. There's some people, the Disneyland band in the background. So that's the end of those. So now we're going to go into the ones full of warts and problems and all sorts of things. As I mentioned, well, I'm going to start actually with some souvenir ones. Some of these are done, some of these are not. When Disneyland first opened, they used the licensee called Drury, Drewry, to put out a bunch of souvenir slides. And they're really fascinating to look at because you can see here how new the park is. Nothing's grown up, just giant piles of dirt all over the place. These have turned super bright red, whatever they use. But again, luckily you can bring most of it back. But they're kind of fascinating to look and see how early the park looked at some points in times. And some of them, I've only got a couple of them for today, but some of them you can still see like a truck parked off to the side, or you know, things where they were still working on it during the days they were building it. There's a mule ride up here. We'll look at it for Cody since she likes horses and mules and stuff. So again, you can see what you call it, how bare it is. I think this guy's also smoking a cigarette, so you know, things are years. Looking into the stockade. Again, look how small the plants are, and now you know they totally grow up. You can barely see the stockade. This is kind of interesting. Anybody notice anything interesting here?
jungle boats in
Yes.
Fowler's Harbor, it looks like.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. The Jungle Cruise boats are all stacked over here in the dry dock area. So back at this point in time, the rivers of America actually connected over to the Jungle Cruise by a navigable waterway, and there was a bridge that went up over them. And over time, they took that out, but they were doing work on the Jungle Cruise, and they weren't ready for the Jungle Cruise boats. So they're all docked over here on the rivers of America, something you would not see today for sure. And again, the island is much smaller in terms of its plant growth in that. This one I thought turned out very nice. Audio animatronic Indian chief up there, and again, look how barren all the land is. This was again something you don't see today, a service road right next to the train track. Now, how about this for a souvenir slide? Let me take this
Yeah.
home with the dead guy with the
I
arrow.
love
sticking
that
out.
one. Yeah, I would definitely take that.
Yeah. Right.
How come there's no blood from when the arrow went in?
Oh, it's drained out through the hole in his back.
Oh, that's it.
See, he's got no color. He's drained. So, but
Yeah.
you know, in traditional Disneyland fashion, we have to make sure we know that he's wearing his arrow shirt, which I don't even know if they still make arrow shirts, but it was a big brand for years. And again, this one I've restored, this one not. This one actually held its color up nice, but you can see it's got some mold spots and things like that I've got around to taking out. So we've got more from Drury. So this is part of their Frontierland set. And now we're going to look at the Grand Canyon diorama. Again, right off the train tracks, this was put in. Kind of show the Walt's fascination with wildlife. These held up their colors pretty well. Again, there's some mold right here. Whatever random attacks, I'll get all that out.
Were those created by the animals created by Imagineers, or were those real taxidermied?
These are all taxidermies, yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
this particular one, this is how it looks without any color correction. This is how it looked with the preliminary scanner color correction, but they held up their color as well. But yeah, these are all actual animals that have been preserved.
Wonder if they're still the same animals today.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think they've changed them out. So besides jewelry, they also sold their own. Let's see, what's the next one? Oh, Eastman Kodak, Eastman Color came in here. They also did souvenir slides, and you'll see here these are mostly untouched. So bright red, I'll be able to fix most of this. I got a kick out of some of these because I don't remember all this stuff with the laundry hanging out up there and old tools and everything hanging back. So I've got to go back and look and see what, it looks like in other shots, but it does look like a real ramshackle, village, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The original Jungle Cruise dock, I have no idea why they took this out. I thought it was pretty neat with the upper level. But again, the signage on here that 9 launches, now 9 naphtha launches, naphtha being a material, a fuel source, which I don't think these were actually naphtha. Well, maybe back then, I don't know what they were running them on, but you're going to see all these particular things out here. Mention those conical hats, they were real popular. They show up in all sorts of shots back then.
I think naphtha was used in dry cleaning.
Yes, it was. You're right. This was one I've gotten the red mostly out of. And some things haven't changed too much. Lines, this is one where they've changed the whole scene with the jungle, the family up on the rocks and everything. This was a whole different things, but the title of this one was Lions Feasting. So now they changed the whole narration about, oh, they're looking at the sleeping giraffe or sleeping zebra.
No, they were guarding the sleeping zebra.
Yes,
because
right, guarding.
everybody loves everybody, in the wild kingdom world.
Yep. Back when they had swans here, they basically, today they don't have swans. People say, why? Oh, it's the fallout from the fireworks. Well, somehow the swans survived 50 years of fallout from the fireworks. And they were actually not owned by Disneyland. They were had an outside guy that would come in and bring the swans in and take care of them. And back in the Paul Pressler days, they decided, why do we have to pay somebody to do that? Let's not have any swans. So unfortunate. Now this group of young ladies here shows up in a whole bunch of pictures. They were probably Disneyland employees that they came out and did a picture shoot. But they show up in a whole bunch of the ones we're going to see in this this group of souvenir slides. This is something you won't see today. Well, maybe today you do. I don't know. But for the beginning part of the park, they had men and women doing the narration on the canal boats, and then they went to strictly women. Today they may have men on it again, but I mean, for 20, 30, 40 years, they had just women doing it. So it was interesting to see a picture of the guy out here doing it. 2 different versions of the same one. Casey Jr. I'd like to think sometime how many miles that little train has gone. I mean, just think, 60 years of this thing chugging around that track. He's covered some miles. So here's our ladies again. This time they're on Dumbo. In this particular Dumbo, if you look, you can see seams here and here because the ears were made to flap when the elephants flew, because that's how Dumbo flew, right? Well, unfortunately, they found out that the motors that made the ears flaps and the guess weights made it so heavy that Dumbo couldn't get up in the air. So they had to gut the mechanisms, lock the ear in place. And the later Dumbos all have fixed ears. But again, that's an early thing for this point in time. We'll go see if we can find the ladies in another section of the park. So we'll leave Fantasyland. We'll head off for Frontierland. Look how barren the hill is back here. Today you'd see the Haunted Mansion out here. There's the fellow. It's interesting. He's in a different pose now. You know, the other one he was laying very head down. Now he's laying flat. So over the years, he shows up in all sorts of different poses. Then he totally disappears. And by the way, it's no longer what you call it, a burning. The cabin's no longer burning, but they couldn't burn it because they changed the narration. It wasn't the Indians that set it on fire. It was its moonshiners set their own cabin on fire. This is a general tour, so some of the pictures are repeated from others. Down here, you can just make out the sign for Wurlitzer, the organs. Again, we've seen some of these from other sets. Columbia being a recent addition when these were done. Again, one of the ways you can start dating things is by what's showing up and what's we won't. I'll skip the Grand Canyon diorama. They're pretty much the same. And our lady friends here, some of them are relaxing on the bench and others are playing with the cannon.
Bill, do they still have the horses?
They do, but they don't run them all the time because the street gets so crowded. It's just not safe for them to be out there, either safe for the horses or for the people.
I wonder if these ladies got photo commission
Yeah.
residuals.
Knowing Disney, no. Yeah, knowing Disney, they had to pay $10 a piece to be in the pictures. Who knows?
Probably.
All right, Tomorrowland. Whole bunch from Tomorrowland. Again, some of them we've seen. The motorboat cruise, I always got a kick. I mentioned the story before. I took my staff from England to Disneyland one day, and you know, we had all these very prim and proper British people, and they were out on the motorboat cruise like they were having the time of their lives. And it was just really kind of fun to see how the simple little ride like this could bring out the child in just about anybody. But I think as a
Well-
kid, you'd think you were steering this thing. And what I really appreciated was you can see the fake rapids. They had water jet. I mean, this water was very placid. It didn't do anything. But they had water jets at certain parts to simulate rapids and stuff. And I thought, again, nice little attention to detail.
It was amazing how barren that was, because I remember when I rode it the first time, it was because I didn't go on it the first time I went to Disneyland, but I was several years older, and that was all filled in green,
Yeah. Yeah.
very lush.
Here's our lady friends again. The original version of the cars with no center track, so you could actually, you know, steer them and pound into things. Moon Man and Moon Girl. Somehow he needed a helmet to survive, and she did not. So I don't know if I've ever seen a picture of her wearing a helmet. But one of those posters again. If we had only saved up our money, we'd be all set. This is a
Wow.
lived attraction, the Viewliner. This was the futuristic train of tomorrow. Bob Gurr built this around a chassis. I think it was a General Motors car engine. And you can see it's a Santa Fe Viewliner, and it would had its own track that went around. It lasted for about 3-4 years, and it was very prone to overheating and had other issues. And they decided all of a sudden one day the Viewliner was unceremoniously gone. Just this past week, people are on Facebook trying to figure out if any of them survived. And they found a zoo that has a ride very, very similar to this, but it turned out they had done their own futuristic train, basically using the same technology Bob Gurr did. But from everything we could tell, Disney just basically scrapped these. This is an interesting thing. This is the first Aerojet ride. And this was another off-the-shelf ride that Disney bought. I think Arrow Development was the company behind it. So when they first built the park, this was nothing special. You could go see these exact same rockets in other amusement parks. But over time, as Disney developed more money, they would go and replace these bodies with more futuristic Disney-styled ride vehicles. The monorail coming into the station. Again, you can sometimes date these things, the 3-car monorail versus later the 4-car monorails. Yeah, so here, again, sometimes you get the same slide from different batches. So this one, very overexposed and much redder, and this one has a tint of green into it. So I will not bother playing with this one. I will work on this one to do the restoration. Okay, finish that batch. And let's jump into some Panaview. If you know the Panaview souvenir slides, they fit in the same folder, same 2x2 inch slide of 3 inch, no, they're 2 by whatever. Anyway, they're the same size of a regular slide mount, but they use a larger image. Over time, these generally have turned bright red. So this is a batch I'm currently working on. So we got to the front side of water. And you can still see there's still a little too much red in him. I've got to work on some of these.
Back when you could shoot a hippo.
Yeah. This is the sort of thing that I get a real kick out of. They sell this as a souvenir slide, but would it have hurt them to keep it in focus? Okay, now I think we're going to get into amateur ones here. So sometimes I have dates on them, sometimes I do not. This one do not. But the early view of Tomorrowland, I love the light pictures here. This is all mold that's been introduced into it that I've got to work on. This was super overexposed to the point where when you first hold it up, it almost looks like it's blank. But I'll be able to darken the sky in and do stuff there. Again, I just, all these lights and everything today, if you were able to, find these and sell them, they'd go for a fortune. I'm sure when Tomorrowland was done, they just took them out and chucked them away. And back in to see good old Dumbo. Sadly gone, the Nature's Wonderland balancing rock up here. So you can see this was taken from the train as it went by.
Did that rock move?
Yeah, it balanced back and forth and kind of went up and down, and some of them actually spun around in circles or whatever. But it looked like it was going to fall onto the train. If you look way in the back here, you can see the covered wagon. Back in the early days, they had the covered wagon would go through here, you had the train would go through here, and they also had the mules would go through here. They got rid of the covered wagon when they had an accident when there were too many people up top because you got better views from up top and it was hot and dusty inside. And it was up top, one of the horses got spooked, took off at a higher rate than it should have, and the stagecoach fell over. It wasn't a covered wagon, it's stagecoach. Stagecoach fell over and the people got hurt, and that was the end of the stagecoach rides at Disneyland. When I worked at the park, all these trails were still there, but they were no longer in use. The trains were still there, but the mules had been gone about 2 or 3 years when I got there, and the stagecoach long gone. But they were a great path that you could walk out and go all the way through here. And on Mondays and Tuesdays, the park was closed. I love to walk out and just go through there, sometimes the bubbling mud pots were going. Most of the time, the stuff was just sitting there turned off or whatever. But it was really just a quiet, serene sort of place. Go and sit in an old chair out by the river, watch the ducks migrating through there and everything. Sad gone that it's gone today, but it was a neat spot. The keel boat's gone. They had the same fate as the stagecoach. Everybody wanted to ride up top. It was a windy day, and the keel boat fell over. People dumped in the river, and that was the end of the keel boats. Here's Fowler Harbor, the dry dock where it was full of the Jungle Cruise boats earlier. Again, you can see pretty barren, not really grown up. This is one that's kind of interesting. I think these are the official Disneyland strollers of the time, but they had seated one with this push bar going on it. So, you know, you see these in a lot of shots. And the guy in the back selling ice cream here, he's wearing white with a sanitation type worker hat on. So again, I don't have a particular year for that one. Now we're going to jump way up into the future, 1975. This was kind of interesting. Disneyland would sell you these slides that you could get, copyright Walt Disney Productions, of course, but you could buy these title slides and take them and stick them in your own presentation as you would show all your neighbors where you've been. Outside the bank here, Bank of America. Some of these are restored at the beginning of, and then we run into where I got bored and went to something else. Your old Fantasyland.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, American Parade. This is passing by. This was the Hills Brothers restaurant we saw earlier.
Bill, on the America on Parade,
Mm-hmm.
do you know, have you heard anything, whether they're gonna do anything for the 250th coming up?
I haven't heard a word. You wonder if they're going to do something, or I'm sure they will, because just think of the merchandise possibilities.
Yeah, but I just haven't heard anybody talking about it, and it's this year. Or next year, I should say, I'm
Next
sorry.
year, yeah.
Yeah, a year, yeah, it
Yeah.
would start in 25. 25 and 26 would be the time they'd probably run it.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of anything.
Well, Bicentennial was everywhere back then. I haven't heard much about this one.
No,
No,
no.
they are issuing stamps through the post office on it. They just started it last year with a couple, and there'll be a couple more this year, but you know, there's not as much going into this one as there was for the Bicentennial.
You don't see this sort of thing. The what you call it, dwarfs just walking down the street by themselves. I'm also trying to figure out what this guy is doing. He's got a bullhorn here, and he's carrying some sort of recording. Looks like a tape recorder here. So don't know what's going on, or there's a security guy here. I don't know if they were filming something and they were giving them directions, go to the left, go to the right. But looks like they were doing something out on the street, and they were holding the crowd back here. So one of those mysteries we'll never know.
It looks like a boombox.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Looks like a boombox.
because it has a cassette player on the bottom.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, I see the
And a radio bar
Yeah,
across the top.
and-
Yeah, that's a boombox.
Yes, AM, FM on
Yeah.
the top.
So they're probably playing some music and having the dwarfs do something for a commercial or something along the line. Good old Dale. I play this cat. Take your advice. Do not play the cat. Kids do not like the cat. Kids will kick the cat. You will hurt yourself.
Robin Hood had just come out.
Yeah. This is a tough one to do. A friend of mine did him, and boy, all the weight of everything is up here, and you know, you need to be a big, tall guy to handle him. Like I said, sometimes these things are all, oh, here, remember I mentioned Ruggles before. Well, Ruggles was bought out by this point in time, and now it's just the China closet. I loved America on Parade. That was, I saw it because I worked at both parks that year, so it was kind of fun to see um, the same floats and the same characters, and I saw this parade so many times during the year. It was I enjoyed it. So we say goodbye to 1975 here. And these again are large format ones, no date. Fire truck in front of City Hall. Well, it's kind of interesting to see how different perspectives. Again, the colors in this one were solid red and changed, but you go back and forth, you know, so much as has changed today. We can't have skulls and things like that out there. I don't know if the names of the boats have changed over the years at the Jungle Cruise. That'd be interesting to know if they still have all the same names. This would have made a nice 3D shot, wouldn't it? If they had done it with, it would have given you a real feeling of depth. The Indian Village, which is Critter Country, or it became Bear Country, Critter Country, but gone now. The dead guy's still here for this one.
The old circular buckets.
Yep. This is what, again, a lot of them look like and have to be worked on. So here, now we can see if Brock can identify these cars. You get the one on the far right, real impressed.
Far right,
That's where you
actually,
cross-
I think that's a Pontiac.
The middle one looks like a caddy from the hubcap.
Yeah, it does kind of. They're definitely General Motors cars, I believe. All three of them.
Yeah, that's a Cadillac in the middle.
Well, we have some more parking lot shots coming up that you'll be able to keep.
And the
repeating.
front one
So
looks
Bill,
like a
is it-
Chevrolet.
Bill, is this where the crossover is to California Adventure now?
Yes, yeah, this Esplanade, this is, let me just go back to the full view. Yeah, the main entrance here, this is the tram that went over to the hotel, which had sideways seating as opposed to the front and back seating of the main parking lot tram. But this is where you cross over, and then back behind where this is taken is where California Adventure is.
Hmm.
So let's get into another batch here. Remember the water fountain I mentioned before? That would be right where this picture was, taken down the street. You can see they've changed out the movie. We're no longer seeing Buster Keaton, but now Will Rogers is being shown here. No water fountain, it's totally gone. As I mentioned, just flowers in place. Movie camera.
Looks like got the dwarf cornered there.
Yeah. Quick, grab him by the feet, throw him in the water. Oh, wait, that's New York where they do that. So yeah, I've got a whole bunch of these are in different folders, so I have to flip back and forth. Back into Adventureland. Let's see what they're selling here. Looks like
Baskets.
straw baskets. Looking down from the treehouse. Looking out from the treehouse. Crocodiles down below, laying in wait. Yeah, this again shows a untouched scan, one way brighten up the brightness of it, and you can get more, like you don't even see these people or anything over here. I will try to use the HDR function in Photoshop to try to combine those. Again, shows an example there, trying to get some extra light, and these are all different settings that I'll play with and see what I can do to combine them. The Indian dance ring, very popular. All the kids would come out, they would demonstrate the dances, and then they would invite them to come down and dance along with them. Haunted Mansion at this point in time was just the facade. There was no interior to it yet. Out to the island, to the treehouse. Get to the next batch here. Nice little artistic shot. Themed trash cans out on the island. And these rafts, it's kind of interesting. It's a couple inches above water here, right? You put enough guests on there. I've been on them where the water has come over the edge of it, and you start thinking about maybe we should have left a few people behind. There's some more views out on the island. Oh, the Indian explorer canoes, and first there were the Indian war canoes, and then the Indian explorer and the Davy Crockett canoes. But anybody that worked at the park that did any of the canoe races will know just how heavy these canoes are. And this is a whole bunch of people all happy to get out. Halfway around the ride, they stop paddling. The cast members have to do all the work. You guys remember Pendleton Wool Shop if you worked there? This was a great shop. You could go and get wool jackets and sweaters and all sorts of things. And they gave a very nice cast member discount and very high quality material. Again, two views on the same. Pendleton was one of the final licensees that I remember them chucking out. I don't remember. I mean, I was there, I think pretty much, I left in '82. I think Pendleton was still there. Off down the rabbit hole at Alice. Now they must have a thing for the balloon costumes, because now they're not dressed as Pinocchio, but now you got to dress in bright orange and purple, and not purple, orange and yellow shirts and everything. Yuck.
Yeah, but Bill, it's interesting to look at. There they had changed over to the actual Mickey Mouse balloon style.
Yes. Yep.
But I kind of like the old balloons better. I like the color variations. You had all kinds of patterns on them, and these were just colored balloons. Even today, they're not that special as compared to those earlier shots we were looking at earlier this morning.
Yeah, and then they also, for a while, they went to these were clear balloons with a different balloon inside. Do you remember when they were the two
Yeah.
balloons in one?
Yeah.
There was, and that again, the balloons were done by a licensee. They had their shop back on Main Street, and pretty much right behind the Main Street Cinema. And they were there for years and years. He was the balloon guy, and for whatever reason, they eventually got bought out. But they had special molds to make these, and they were very proud of the fact that they were making these three-dimensional balloons. But yeah, the other ones did have a lot more color to them.
Yeah.
Matterhorn.
Yeah, the old single car.
Yeah. Yep.
Still hollow inside too.
Yep, it was. People were just talking about that on Facebook about how the caverns. Come on, Mouse. You could just see all the way across and everything. You see all the steel beams and everything, and that was all done in the. This one brightened up a bit. You can see the emergency evacuation stairs here. That was all redone in the early '80s when they introduced Harold the Monster and stuff inside.
Harold the Yeti.
Yep. Out to the canal storybook. I mentioned before how popular this was with kids.
Could you name some of those little village areas we just saw?
Well, I can.
That's Geppetto's
That's
workshop
Geppetto's
there. This
toy
is,
shop. Yeah, here.
yeah, this is Pinocchioville part of the,
Right. Yeah, if you go back to some of the others, I don't remember particularly which one this would be.
oh, this was, it was the three windmills and it was I'm trying to remember what it was from. It's from a Disney thing that they did. It was part of a movie, I think. And then that's Toad Hall.
Yeah, Toad Hall, right.
And I'm not sure what village
Cinderella
that is.
Castle,
Oh yeah, Cinderella. That's the village down below it. Yeah.
right. I think wasn't this just the cartoon, The Old Mill?
Yeah, the old mill.
Was that it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought there were three mills that they had in a row there, and maybe it was part of the old mill, was part of a group of mills.
Right. It's funny, you know, when we go back there every now and then, you know, just like to ride this to take myself back to when, you know, having started working at Disney World, you get real familiar with that, and you come out here and oh my God, this is something we don't have at Disney World. So, you know, I still get a kick every now and then of going and riding it, just taking me back to the days of when I started and all this was brand new to me. There's the boss. Spent many an hour inside that suit. And the kids like him a lot more than they like the cat. I'll tell you that. This is a real interesting one here. She not only has her Instamatic out, but it's a motorized Instamatic. See the motor up top? So you knew you were really living tall when you had a motorized Instamatic. The parades were a lot simpler then, weren't they? You know, now you have to have all these gazillion-dollar floats and synchronized sound and everything else.
You have to wait, line up an hour and a half beforehand to get.
Oh, I know. And we're on the mine train here, and try to figure out who some of these people were, who Jeremiah Colt was, that he got his name on this. I don't know if some Imagineer, his uncle, brother, or whatever, or his name after the guy that invented the Colt gun. So the backside of water. Okay, I mean, some people pay big money to go see that. Bear country. All the bears are scratching their backs against the trees. We've switched now to
Pretty
the
abrasive
rectangle-
bears.
What's that?
I said, those are pretty abrasive bears.
We switched now to the rectangular Bob Gurr bucket. And the modern Tomorrowland with the stage that would go up and down here, and the rocket jets being up here above.
All that crump stuff.
Yeah. Herd of deer out there. They're doing their battle here as all the females wait to see who the victor is going to be. Okay, guys, I want you to name all these cars starting here at the bottom left and work your way up. I just figured for you car guys, you'd enjoy this. So,
Well, there's a Lincoln Continental.
look at all the Volkswagens.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You got a VW Bug, not a Mustang. The red one looks like,
I think that's a Nova.
yeah, yeah. Then you have a Continental, another Bug.
Yeah, I was surprised. Red bug, gray bug, blue bug, you know.
I think that's an blue Oldsmobile station wagon.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the old Dodge van, where you sat on top of the motor practically.
Mhm.
Oh, like here?
Yeah,
That
that
looks
one.
like a blue that looks like a Duster, the blue one.
Yeah,
Two cars
the other.
up.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Can you zoom in on that brown van? I'm curious about something.
Sure.
It's a Chevy.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a
now-
Chevy?
We used to call them oven seats.
Mhm. We had a brown and white Chevy van, looked very similar, but the windows aren't the same. When we
Yeah.
toured the country in it once around this time, so I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, here's another VW bug. I mean, they're
Yeah.
real popular. Then I got a kick over here.
I would take one
Came in
today.
his camper.
Woohoo!
Here's another
Station
van
wagon.
for you.
You don't see many station wagons these days.
No, no, absolutely. So, but yeah, just
I'm just impressed at seeing a parking lot.
And there are parking spaces available.
what John Hench said when he first went to California Adventure, I liked it better as a parking lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, basically back then they had handicap parking that you would get up here, and then I don't think they had any VIP parking. They had a big area over here for the side for buses and that. But way over to the right here was the employee parking, and if you got there early enough in the day, you could park really close up, walk in through the admin building. But if you got there late in the day, you had a hell of a hike to come in. So I was glad when I got promoted and got in-berm parking, and I didn't have to fight that anymore. Back out to Nature's Wonderland. Mentioned the bubbling mud pots, geysers. The mud pots are down here, and geysers. It was really the trouble is if you were walking out there on a day off, and every now and then they would turn them on to test them or something, and you'd have the water would come down on you. But it was fun. There's the train going by. You had up here mountain lion getting ready to leap on you.
Yeah, that was about another one of the balancing rocks because he would kind of, I think, move on it.
Yeah.
It would move and tip down towards you.
Yeah, it would kind of give you the impression he was going to leap off of to safety and get, hit you.
Yeah.
And a Kodak special here. You can see all the prices of the flowers, 10 cents. But I mean, they all look real. These are the expensive ones. These are
Already
dollars here. These got to be the big time stuff. But they had all sorts of them. So they were really, really popular. And they sold, like I said, you can still find online the catalogs for them. Haunted Mansion. This I got a kick out of. This is a one big sign. Somebody did a lot of carving on that. And if you remember the cartoons, J. Audubon Woodlore, and then totally made up Disney name Ursus Americanus, American bear naturalist. So here's another one for you car guys. I don't see any beetles in this one.
Bill, can you zoom in on that blue one, the camper in the first row?
That is
Yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's got a bigger top than that is strange.
Yeah, and that
I
top
have
could
never
actually
seen
lift.
anything like that.
Yeah, the top would lift up. There was a tent-like material in between that kind of sandwiched area you see there. And that would even
Yeah.
go higher up. I think there was sleeping levels up there you could sleep in, if I remember correctly. I saw one of those camping one time, and guy had us look at it. There's a Cadillac next to it.
I
Yeah,
think Volkswagen made something like that too.
Yeah, they had something
That
similar.
pop top thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
There's
a
a
red
Cougar.
Mustang.
Yep.
Is that
Yeah.
no? That's a
no,
I
the
thought-
the blue
that's-
one below it is a Cougar.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Mustang.
Yeah.
The red one's a Mustang because that's the
Right.
Mustang taillights.
Yep. Then you
Dark
get
to the
that
left.
too. Couple more vans out here.
No Mustang convertibles. Didn't see
No. Oh, I guess they made all the VWs park over here today.
They lined them all up.
Yeah, just 3 of them in a row right there.
Must
So
be a
that's-
rally.
Yep.
Yeah.
everybody walking on in.
It was Herbie days at the park.
Oh yeah. He's another tough character to do. Kids love him, but his tail comes out so far, and they love to grab him and pull him and swing him around. So more of the swans that are no longer with us.
Oh,
Well, this is kind of interesting. Somebody got some pictures of the park as they were going out. So all this, of course, here, all these shops and everything's been changed for Star Wars land and stuff like that. And down below here, the Rivers of America and the Matterhorn parking lot. Now, can you identify these cars? If you can, I'll be real impressed. So, and then over here, we're going over to the Disneyland Hotel side of the property.
I thought they didn't allow flights over the park.
What's that?
I thought they didn't allow flights over the parks.
Oh, they don't now. They for what you call it, safety reasons. But back then, yeah, it was no problem at all. When I got my pilot's license, you could still fly down there and overfly it. Today, I mean, since 9/11, you can't do any of that. But back then, you could without problem.
So when I visited Hong Kong Disney, the airport is, I forget, west of Disneyland. And depending on the weather, sometimes they did route outgoing flights over the park.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have tourist biplanes in Orlando that you could go off, and I got to fly over Epcot and Magic Kingdom in a biplane. This is all before 9/11.
Yeah, I took several helicopter flights and took my camera and got some really nice shots of the whole park and then the infrastructure, the backstage areas and all that. So can't do that now. Imagine that put a lot of those helicopter companies, if not out of business, it certainly didn't help them any. Looks like the Adventureland Bazaar got rid of all the dirty laundry that was hanging up here in that other shot. The castle, of course, has changed so much. You know, they had all these muted colors back then. This will be a bit brighter when I restore it, but now it looks absolutely gaudy. I do not like what they've done. You know, they said, oh, modern audiences want more eye-catching stuff. To me, if this was good enough for Walt with muted colors, it should be good enough today. I don't like what they've done with the castle at all.
Too pink now.
Yeah, I just don't like it. This, I think, was done before the tiki birds were put in. That'd be over where this is taken from. First aid station here. 25 cents to ride on the fire wagon, which I don't think is, I don't know the last time that thing ever came out of the firehouse.
Walt's window is open.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I moved up there.
yeah. Scaffolding, they were doing some work here on the pirate ship. Yeah, this again, unrestored. This is one I did restore. You can do so much with the computer, but I got a real kick out of this one. We were giving a talk on, you know, things at Disneyland that weren't there anymore. I mean, I don't know if I have any pictures that actually show the National Lead Company exhibit. So the Crane Company was the bathroom of the future, but I have no idea what the National Lead Company was showing there. This was a good one. Again, you go around stagecoaches, covered wagons, Conestogas, all sorts of stuff. This was only there for the early years of the park. But Journey West and Conestoga wagons relive the covered wagon days of the Old West, where they wouldn't know where your next meal was coming from, and Indians would attack over the hillside. But I got a real kick out of this shot because I don't know if I've seen any of this particular wagon being used in other shots before. I've got some long distance views of the Conestoga wagon, but this is the only shot I can think of this particular buckboard wagon, Surrey, whatever it's called. One of the performers. These guys, of course, are ancient history now.
National Lead Company did the Color Gallery exhibit in Tomorrowland.
Color Gallery. Oh,
Yeah, that's Roy.
I guess it was probably a paint company or something.
Yeah, they actually used the lead in the paint.
Yeah, because we all know how that worked out.
Oh yeah, that was a great idea.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, she's wearing a helmet. Oh, okay. So we do have a shot of her wearing a helmet. She's protected from the elements. These had to have been hot little things to wear on a summer day. But yep, Spaceman and Space Girl. It's interesting because almost all the other shots they have the Space Girl, no helmet, and she's wearing a skirt as opposed to pants. So it's interesting to see how things change or, just pop up over time.
She was a
And
longer.
she
term-
had to walk around in those heels too.
Yeah, yeah. So storybook land. So all women doing it by this point in time. The old joke back here, they take you to Adventureland, Tomorrowland, everything, and this is Never Never Land. And as they said, it's because that's where the boat maintenance area is. But they said it's Never Never Land because we'll never take you back there. So, and it was also the employee break area. Looks like Main Street really grew up over time, didn't it? That's why they had to take the trees down because they got too big for it. I did warn you there'd be warts and all, so lots of all unrestored stuff. But just as good to give you a view of a park that once was. Still regret I never got to scuba dive in the lagoon. Always wanted to do that.
I've scuba dived in the living seas. Does that count?
No. They had the maintenance guys who have to go out here all the time to get stuff that people dropped, cameras and things like that. The one that they didn't like doing was the jungle cruise and some of those waters that are darker. And matter of fact, you had to make sure you had your gamma globulin shots up to date because some of the stuff that would live in the water. As I mentioned, look how the snow level has changed on the Matterhorn over the years. Why they let this particular area, look unsnowy, I don't know, but certainly looks better to me when the whole mountain is covered in snow as opposed to just the top.
Well,
So
this
that was
is
a deliberate change? That's
Yeah.
deliberate?
Yeah,
Wow.
well, this is also an early one because there's the round bucket. So this
Yeah.
is fairly recent after it was done. I think maybe they extended the snow after a point in time.
yeah, it's if we zoom in on it. And some of these, I've got one shot with the guy standing right up here at the top, and it's like, that's a great view, but boy, it's to me when I went up there, that's scary as hell up there. I put my head above the hatch. There's no way I would ever stand on the top of that thing. Got windy up there too.
I don't see a guide wire for Tinkerbell.
Nope, don't see one here either. Don't know when she was added in. Central ticket booths again. The Cascade Falls here all gone because the wood rotted out and they're too cheap to replace it.
Welcome.
Don't worry, ladies, he's got his trunk on. Or you take that ride enough, you end up with knowing all the bad jokes. Looks like the snow is further down in this one.
Mhm.
And the buckets are different.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we're now the square buckets. And again, an example here and here of playing with different exposure levels. Showed a picture of Tomorrowland yesterday, day before, put a picture of Tomorrowland. People, what's that big building in the back? And it turns out it's a nursing college. But no, telling people it's not part of Disneyland. It's just what you can pick up with a telephoto lens. Street entertainment, things we don't have as much of anymore. The band playing down here. Again, enjoying the Skyway. Disneyland Hotel in the back.
Rocket had the McDonnell Douglas scheme on it rather than TWA.
What's that?
The rocket had the McDonnell Douglas paint scheme rather than TWA. if you look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not nearly as pretty.
No. The TWA colors just really made it pop out. This is January of 1966, according to this. We're almost done. We'll hit a few more. July 1962. This was super dark. I was really glad I was able to bring it out. See, that's the snow looks a lot better to me than just up at the top. Down below the Monsanto House of the Future, hiding there in the trees. The Bell Telephone Company invites you to see Circle Vision. There's Monsanto. There's the Douglas rocket. Just doesn't look anywhere near as elegant. It looks sort of short and dumpy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Just amazing what difference a paint job can make. They're still selling ice cream here. I don't know if they still are out there. I have to go and look sometime. Small World, proudly sponsored by Bank of America. And that will do it for today. Let me stop share. Let me just look through the chat here. I always like to see if people point out all the mistakes I've made. Okay, let me go through here. So hopefully people saw some things that were new there today. Yeah, back at the very beginning, Jim Brown mentioned Rivers of America to be taken out of Disney World. Don't get me going on that. And Joey's saying hi to everybody. He didn't say hi to me. Oh, okay.
Hi, Bill.
Okay, good. It may be because I'm not even going to pronounce that. Semi-quintennial isn't as catchy as bicentennial.
Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as easily.
No, no. Just
Yeah,
as a workers' comp report, I was injured when I fell over wearing the bear outfit. I tell you, some of those suits were really tough. I mean, some of them are really, really easy, you know, and fun to do. Like I said, kids love the chipmunks, but then what you call it, you wear some of the villains, you realize about that. So, but yeah, I mean, again, I'll work on these over time. If you looked at the dates, some of these are, I scanned these back. It's hard to believe, 2007, and I said, oh my God, you know, and I have thousands of pictures to be restored, and I'm looking at a closet here, which is absolutely full, floor to ceiling. The closet is full of boxes of photos. The last month or so, I've been telling myself, I must stop buying these things. Oh, that's pretty. I must have that. It's really a disease. But
Hey, Bill,
yeah,
yeah, curiosity, you do a tremendous number of slides and some prints, but do you do any color negatives?
you know, they don't show up as often. That's a good, interesting question, Wayne. I do have some of these are slides. Most of these are slides. The color negatives don't show up as often. They're easy enough to restore. They take a little bit of effort because they have an orange cast to them that you got to work on, but they just don't show up as much. I think in a lot of cases they were like my mother. She just threw out the negatives because, you know, who's ever going to need another copy of these, and there's only so much room. So prints went into photo albums, slides went into trays, but the negatives, I think a lot of people just chucked out over time. And like I said, the prints, it's kind of interesting because even on some of the cheaper Instamatic stuff, you can really pick up amazing amounts of detail on some of the prints. The trouble is, you know, what's really interesting, we had a place in the town I lived in that did photography. You know, I bought all my film there. Oh, God, the amount of money I spent there over the years. And they did their own black and white, but I think they sent the color work out to be developed. Some places just didn't do a very good job on it, and full of dust and everything right in the pictures. When Carol and I worked at the studio, they had a thing, the Mickey Mouse Recreation Club, and it was employee center. And they had a really neat thing where you could drop your film off, and then 2 days later you could pick it back up. And whoever they sent it to, I think they must have reused the chemicals 200 times more than they should have, because so many of the pictures that I can really tell the years that I worked at Disney because so many of my negatives from back then have turned like a really bright green color and really weird stuff. My years before and my years after Disney, they look much better. But during the years at Disney, a lot of my prints, the slides still look pretty good. But I was taking a lot of prints back then, and they really got the negatives really came out bad over time with whoever they were cheap, but I guess now we know why they're cheap. Yeah, I'd say out of my collection, Wayne, negatives probably make up 1%.
Hmm.
I mean, they just don't show up. It's again, occasionally you get some. I can't think of. I mean, I'm scanning. I'm looking at over on my left here. I'm doing some of my family ones, but I can't recall the last time. I've got a bunch of black and white negatives that I'm doing, but they're from the 39 fair, which is interesting, by the way. You try to figure out how much image you can get. Look at the size of this negative. It's 4 inches by 7 inches. The trouble is I have not found a negative holder that holds a 4 by 7 inch negative. So I've got to build one for my my Epson scanner. But if anybody knows what a 4 by 7 negative is, I don't know. I'm just doing a bunch of them from the 39 fair, and these are 4.5 by 5.5 or 3.5 by 5.5, something like that. But again, amazing amounts of details that you get on some of these big negatives. But again, on some of the Instamatics, if they had, most of the Instamatics had really crappy plastic lenses. But if you get one like that lady had with a motor and they had glass lenses, you can pick some pretty nice images out of them.
Bill,
Yeah.
those are from a portrait camera,
Hmm.
like a Plaurbel. Back in the day, the actual where you would put the hood over your head,
Hmm.
the image would be inversed.
Okay.
Back in the day, my wife worked in a place called Doi Camera. They were very big in Japan. And two of the managers owned Plaurbel USA.
Hmm.
So she occasionally would come across those kind of negatives. They were from what was called a portrait camera.
Hmm.
Like you saw in the old movies when they would hold up the flash powder
Oh,
tin.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was the type of camera they were using back then.
Do you know what this film size was?
I believe they had several different ones. I'll ask her and give me 2 seconds. I'm going to ask her. She's in the other room.
Okay, great.
I don't want to yell.
Bill, while we're waiting, I've got a question for you. What's that car doing on Main Street for your background?
Yeah, yeah. It was funny because somebody the other day posted a picture of Warner Weiss posted a picture of something about Sunkissed or whatever, and I said people say, oh, they make great orange juice. I said, oh, it's also a great place to park. So yeah, I mean, like as I mentioned again, the people that steal credit for your stuff. I mean, it's my brand new 1976 Camaro parked on Main Street, and people post it as it's their picture, or oh, it's a Chevy ad. No, it's not. It was a Tuesday. It was October 24th, 1976, I think.
So the park was closed.
What's that?
Park was closed.
Yeah. Yeah, there were two rules. Your car could not drip while, and you cannot drive over the drawbridge. So those are the only two rules that that I remember. And we did take some of the cars off the Autopia one day and drove those around the park. I did go over the drawbridge on those, but figured I was okay for that.
Bill?
Scott, an answer?
Answer is, by the time she was with the company, the standard size was 4 by 6.
Oh, okay.
The one that you have is an earlier date, obviously,
Right.
but way back in the era, they had a whole host of different size frames that they would use.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have is probably what was the standard in the 30s into the early 40s.
Yeah, it's the only batch of 4x7s that I found came up with, and I'll build a holder. I'll cut some mat board out and make a holder. If you lay it right flat on the glass, you get Newton rings and patterns and stuff you don't want. But the scanner has a sweet spot, so I've figured out for some other ones exactly how high off the plastic it has to be. So. But I had this huge box of 39 stuff I've been scanning like mad because I just wanted to get rid of the box. And it's just, these are, I've done all the easy ones. Now the other ones are down to the end. I've got another batch here where somebody took a whole bunch of 35mm black and white negatives, but they cut them all into individual, I can't put them in a strip. I've got to use, and it's this pretty neat little thing they have for the Nikon scanner. It's a holder that you can open up, put your 35mm frame in it, stick it into the scanner, and it works. But it's meant to hold strips of 6, and now it means I've got to do, every single one of them manually, but I'll survive.
Yeah, it's
Bill?
too, it's,
Go
Yes.
ahead, Ray.
yeah, it's too bad about the scarcity of negatives because you can pull out bad exposures from a negative that you can't from a print.
Yeah, I mean, you can really do an awful lot. So many so many of the slides, the adjustment tool, contrast and brightness thing in Photoshop just lets you go in, and like it said, the one shot of the Matterhorn with the emergency staircase. So you can pull stuff like that out of the shadows. What's really nice is you can push stuff back into the shadows for the stuff that's overexposed. And that was the big thing. A lot of people took pictures, and they would just take the camera indoor, outdoor, and you end up with underexposed and overexposed in the same roll. And luckily now you can fix it with a computer. Excuse me, hiccups.
Bill, I was going to ask a question. Do you recall when Disneyland first opened, did they not have air conditioning? I want to say that there was a deal that they were trying to save money and they didn't know if it was going to be a success. And do we put the extra money in? Only because a couple of the pictures we looked at from the early days, Walt's apartment above the firehouse, which in that picture, if you notice, the windows were open.
Mhm.
And then also the candy company had those big half round windows, which were tipped open as a natural way to let heat get out, escape from the place. And I'm just wondering if that's why those windows were open, because if you had air conditioning, why would you have opened windows?
Yeah, I don't believe it was air conditioner was open. As a matter of fact, if you try to look at some of the pictures, you can see where it looks like ductwork and stuff was added to the buildings later, to cover that. I mentioned going into the shops for the Tinkerbell toy shop, going through the stock rooms and everything, and you could tell the air conditioning and everything was just a real afterthought because where it was wound and going around, and you literally had to duck down. We were joking, I wonder how much asbestos is in all this crap as we went through it and climbed up and down. But yeah, it was I think when the park first opened, air conditioning wasn't a real big thing.
Well, I think part of it was, like I said, a cost savings. And if this fails, we won't have spent all that extra money. We can always come back and add it type of thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, if it wasn't added quickly afterwards, because some of those show buildings with the ride systems running, you don't realize how much heat they start to put out, and just the heat of people. And in the middle of summertime, that could have been a really dicey thing. But I think I remember stuff talking about that was one of the things they didn't put in on purpose in the beginning, because if this fails, why spend that money? If it's a success, we can add the air conditioning later.
Yeah. Yeah, just like the add drinking fountains and so many of the other things that they just didn't have on day one. We'll have to fire up the time machine and go back and check. If it's hot, we'll come home. You figure how hot the park must have been, because back at those days, look at how many of those people were wearing hats that they bought there.
Mhm.
That they probably went there and like today, if you went out of our house today, it was gray and gloomy outside. it's gonna be 75 degrees or something, you know, you get down to Anaheim, you get that, you know, cool breeze and everything at certain parts of the day. But man, it can get hotter in Anaheim than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the temperatures this past year, particularly at the, you know, the Star Wars area where there's not a lot of trees and everything, it's kind of brutal in there. So, come on, puppy, there you go. Ah, I've had the dog in my lap almost the entire time. I don't think, oh, I can actually bend my legs. That's amazing. So, Carolyn mentioned you signed up for Kathy's event to celebrate the 70th birthday at Disneyland. Yeah, I got to confirm that date with her. It's hard to believe it's coming up on 70 years for the happiest place on earth, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have to start. She said something about the first week of January, we can buy our park tickets.
Yeah. It's
Well, you guys can probably get them anytime, but I can't.
well, you know, we still have the what you call it, never wear out passes, you know, that sort of stuff. So we don't go to the park very much at all because it's just so crowded, you know.
Well, it's kind of a haul for you. It's probably at least 2-hour drive.
You know, it really depends. We're all of I think it's 54 miles from the park. And you know, Carol and I were down there recently, you know, for something we drove back home and made it, you know, just fine. But sometimes you can take 2 hours to get down there, and other times, you know, it just depends. So but yeah, it's just not fun when you drive for 2 hours and fight the parking, and it can be 3 hours from the time you leave your house to the time you get into the front, you know, front gate. And then you know, coming home is usually a bit better, but then every now and then you hit a day and go, wow, where was everybody today? It worked out real well. Well, I hope folks enjoyed it. Next week, I think I'm going to be looking at the early days of Walt Disney World and more pictures from there. And there won't be, unfortunately, as many pictures of parking lots for you guys to figure out what the cars are. So, but yeah, like I said, I get a real kick of just looking through these little things. And, you know, sometimes I haven't looked at them for a long time, but then you remember, oh, wow, you're looking through the arch at Nature's Wonderland, you catch the stagecoach, you know, things that were gone, you know, many years ago. It's you know, I posted a picture online this past week of the balancing rock on Tom Sawyer Island, and I made mention that, oh, they had to get rid of it because of you know, the lawyers, you know. And you figure how many of these things, like, you know, the rifles on what you call it, the fort were there for years and years. Then some kid hurt his finger on a rifle. Now the rifles have to come out. The balancing rock, I don't know if anybody ever caught their finger or toes in it, but oh, they might, so out it comes. So the number of things they've taken out over the years because of you know, the lawyers or liability, like even the drawbridge I mentioned, kids may fall in the water. We've got to get rid of the drawbridge, put in walls because they could fall through the chains. It's just kind of amazing to see the yeah, how the place has changed over the years, you know, for liability type reasons and cost cutting or whatever. But at least we have a nice behind Jim. There's that's a big that's Disney World, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me get that unmuted. Yes, that's Disney World, the taller castle.
Yeah, I thought it was sticking above your head there. So
Yeah, when it's taller castle, it's Disney World. Short when it's Disneyland.
well, I tell you, having gone to Disney World as a tourist and hired on there, when I first came out, Disneyland was so small. It was, and then I actually like Disneyland better. I mean, I like the size of the scale and everything better myself. So, but it's still fun for us to go back to the Disney World. So we have to find a reason to go do it, but not in summer. So I hope everybody had a great Christmas. Did anybody get something super exciting for the Santa leave? Anybody? Nobody got a time machine or a DeLorean or anything like that, darn. And now we get New Year's coming up, so looking forward to that. Carol and I are going to a play that night, so we'll be sober for the night, I imagine. We always are. Carol doesn't drink much, so she's a cheap date. But next Saturday we'll be back at Walt Disney World. So I hope everybody has a great New Year's and looking forward to seeing you on next Saturday. Take care.
Happy
Hi,
New
Bill.
Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year's, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Be safe.